evening, Sam here, welcome to Relove Guitars. It's Tuesday evening and we're here in the shed with another of Mr. Beach's acquisitions, and it's a Hondo 2 Les Paul copy from the late 70s or early 80s, and it's kind of a familiar construction type thing. So we've got what looks to be a ply body with a formed ply top. Don't know exactly what these pickups are. They don't sound bad. They're possibly not the original ones, judging by the quality of them. We've got a kind of rusted up bridge here, which we can probably throw away, and a corroded stop bar, corroded switch, corroded strap buttons, a kind of deeply worn set of frets and neck, Hondo headstock with some replacement tuners that probably came around the same time as the pickups, and you can see they've been added with the old toothpick thing, but we've got a split here where that one's gone in. Yeah, corroded again. Standard neck of guitar of that era, bolt on, and some lacquer cracking, scratching there back to the wood or the primer. So everything looks very familiar. Even this, interestingly, doesn't say made in Japan, which they often do. So this is a different creature. You can probably see the reflection in the light. You may be able to see the layers of ply. So this is an interesting critter. I'm just going to put the power in, sorry, hold on a second, without switching anything off. Yeah, yes, interesting one, because my customer has bought a whole set of guitars recently, quite a few Japanese ones, and a lot of them have been good quality ones. This is kind of borderline. The thing to say is that these are quite fun to play, and it's only in tune because I've stretched the strings out and tuned it already, but they've got quite a lot of punk 80s mojo sort of thing. This one's filthy. There's no reason why it couldn't be cleaned up a little bit, although it's got plenty of rust and patches worn off, so it's got road wear on it, so you wouldn't be looking to sort of pretty it up. These can be made to play brilliantly, but they require a refret usually, a re-radius of the board, and then kind of upgrading equipment. But we're not going to go for that. What we've opted for is a sort of an unusually light setup, because it's not one I think that Beach will want to keep. What we're really going to look at doing here is making this play as good as it can with what we've got, and doing a bit of a clean up so it's not got somebody else's DNA on it. But the idea is to make it feel like it'll play well. And it doesn't sound too bad, so initial reports as I heard it the other day, and that's that's primarily because I do think that these pickups are later replacements. These kind of guitars very often came with single coil in a tin style pickups, which I'm just putting this here to support that, they pretended to be humbuckers, but they weren't. So this pots are they need to clean. So everything's working. That's what I'm going to do with that for a minute. Just the point being, everything's working, so that's a good start, and the tone from the off is much better than you'd get on the standard one of these from the day. So it's a sort of minimum effort, and I don't mean that in like it doesn't deserve better effort, but it's a set up to a budget. Now it's not going to get the fret leveling which I would normally do, so that's out of the question straight away. So what can we do without the fret leveling? Well, let's call it a £50 setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the nut with a bone one, and we're going to make sure that it has good free running slots, and then we're going to replace this bridge as well, I think, and then clean the whole thing up once we've done that. So, oh no, what have I done with, this is disastrous. I've never lost that before. Holy cow. Panic. Ladies and gentlemen, we have misplaced the blue thing. That really is odd. Never happened. Can't be out here. Kicking around in here. No. Okay. Did I take it inside to do some stringing up? No. That's why it's gone in the electrics department. Right. Okay, so first of all, in order to, there's a couple of things we need to do before we spend anything on it. First thing we ought to do is make sure that the truss rod works. So I'm going to do this without the strings on. We've got grooves here from years of playing chords, cowboy chords down there. We're not really going to be able to do anything about those. The nut is full of gunge because the slots are too deep and too old. So we're going to take off the truss rod cover, and we're going to check the truss rod. If it doesn't work, then we sort of really have to stop and think whether it's worth spending anything on it at all. It plays okay as it is physically. There are some choked out notes when you bend higher up there, but as a chord guitar and knocking out some rock chords, it probably would be okay, or fun, you know, for not a lot of money. But so let's just have a look what we've got now. Currently we've got a little bit of curvature, but let's see if we can tighten it up and get it to produce some back bow. If it does, we know that it's working. That's too big as well. Why is that? What am I doing here? That's not a 5mm, that's why. But this one is. Ooh, creak. It probably hasn't been turned for centuries. Okay. Not a lot of movement there. Let's go and get the thing. Right, that's what I'm doing. Let's have a look down here. Oh, we've got a sort of gap, and we've got some sink around the inlays, that's for sure. But in terms of curvature, we've still got a bit of curvature and no back bow, which is a little bit on the worrying side. We're going to go the other way first of all and see what happens. Now, if this is a one-way, which it probably is, we're on slack. So there's an option here, as a get out of jail trick. If you've got no more push in your truss rod, what you can do is take the whole thing off. When it comes off, it usually will come off. And if possible, you can find if you can find the right things, you can put a little bit of a tiny sized washer or nut between there and the end of the truss rod, which can give you back. Now this may already have, could well already have something on there. Let's have a look with the magnety thing. No, maybe not. Okay, so sometimes it runs out of push, and when it won't turn or do anything, I'll put it back on for a minute. If it won't do anything, then sometimes you can add that extra bit of push. So we will see. Let's try and get a bit of we're totally on slack now, so let's see what we have, and if we can't get can't improve it, I'm going to look on this one here, which I will identify with this. So I'm looking there to see the size of the gap at that point, and then we'll have a go at typical. Mark it with that one. Now let's just count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 after the 7th fret. Right, we'll try it again, and if we see some movement, then it's sort of working, but we haven't got enough. And if we need to, we'll try and find some extra spaces to bulk out this adjuster so it can work better. And then we'll kind of have a look down there again in the same place. Yeah, you know, that has done something, but it's not what I would call back bow yet. So it's a bit on the limited side. So my feeling would be, I think we do need to bulk this out because it's struggling. But the good news is it's not seized or stuck or whatever. So that's the first thing we can do. Now, the question is, what can we use for it? And it's not exactly easy. What you can't afford to do is get whatever washer you choose stuck on the threaded thing. So just to make this make sense here, let's get the thing doing its thing. Right, so what we're looking at is we have, let's imagine it looks like this for a minute. So what you've got is, we'll get rid of that and that, sort of. Okay, it's not quite like that, but let's say you've got this threaded bar, and when you've got your adjuster on, the adjuster goes over it like that, and the idea is, actually, that's the truth is that's probably further in than that. Let's go right down to there, for example. Okay, so there's your threaded bar, which corresponds to the internal thread, like that, of this adjuster piece, that piece there. And then at the end of it, what you've really got is a hex adapter thing like that. And the idea is you turn that, and when you turn it, you push that, which causes the rod to bend along its length like that. Now, if that's run out of push, what you find is, if you're careful, you can basically add a couple of washers down the end of there. So obviously they have to go over this down to the end like that, maybe 1 or 2, let's put 2 in, right? And those sit before the adjuster pushes against those instead of pushing against the plate that it was pushing against before. So the plate's still there, but it's kind of behind the whole thing, and it's now in contact with the washer, and so that when you do your adjustment, the adjuster pushes in against these 2 washers, which then in turn push against the plate, which causes the bend. And adding the washers gives you that extra push if it's run out. Done it before and it works, but if these are too small, then chances are you put them on and you put too many on, or you put one on and you want to get it off, they stick on there and you can't get them off. If they're too big, they won't go through the hole in the wood. So you have to have this peculiar thing that's just the right size, and you have to be very careful. So I'm going to have a look for small washers, which aren't in this box, I don't think. Let's have a look at washers to begin with. I don't think we're going to find anything in here that's small enough. I know that I noticed that StewMac actually sells things for just this job. And the smallest things we've got in here are these little press washer things, and I think even those will be too small, but let's keep them out just in case. And then we're going to have a look in the other department. Oh, sorry, boring news. Nuts. Okay, so somewhere I had, there's washers, but these are probably full size. Yep. Nothing particularly small in there. Oh, there's a small one, but that's not going to be, the bore on that isn't going to be big enough. Two tiny ones, that's probably too big. Two tiny ones. Now, potentially you could drill these bigger if you had to, although holding on to a tiny washer while you're drilling it is not easy. Too big, too big, too big. So I guess what you're looking at is it's got to be that size, fit over there pretty closely. So put this one over and we see that actually that does, it's just a bit larger than the adjuster, which should, possibly could, go in and work. And then there's an even smaller one here which may not go over the, fit over the threaded part because it's actually fractionally too small. But it's kind of in the right direction. These little solid ones will never fit over the threaded part of the rod, so that's a no-go. So the tricky bit is kind of having a look in here with a torch, which I happen to have here. And there's the tired looking old, I think it might have even had a couple of washers squeezed in against that in the past, but there's probably some room, pardon me, for another go. And then to do that, I'll put them on the edge of this. Well, actually, before I do that, the question is, do they fit comfortably in there and will they come out again? So a way of doing that would be to get pliers, put them on the plier like that and sort of jam it open, and then experiment with running them inside the hole. Oh well, I put it in there and it's fallen over. That wasn't so clever. If I use the magnetic device, it'll come out. So ideally what we'd like to do is to get these via a thinnish object, get these to kind of go over the threaded bolt. There's no, I'm comfortable doing this now because there's no real danger of them getting stuck in there. We know that we can magnet them out if necessary. So just trying to get them over. That's the tricky bit. And let's have a look in here. What are they doing? Well, maybe they're going to fit. It might be that the constraint might be not quite enough room on the outside. I have a feeling that could be the case. So you can see it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I don't think they actually quite want to go on. There's not quite enough room below them. They're trying to go on there. They're showing willing, but they would have to be pushed to get them to go on. Maybe they will. I don't mind if I have to drag them down a bit, as long as they go on and stay on long enough to get the adjust. I think they might just go actually. So let's give this a go. biting. I'm going to push them down. Now the question is, has it compressed them far enough necessary to do the job? And that could be anyone's guess. And if they got stuck and kind of compressed into place, we may not actually get any further than we got in the first place. But I'm hoping that at least some of this force is converting into counter curvature. I think it's certainly looking like that on that side. Bear with me. Okay, well, we've not got any, there's not relief happening at this moment. And this one here is pretty almost flat still, so I don't know if we've converted that into any useless force. Useless Freudian slip. Useful force. Let's have a look. Now that's right down to the end, so that's added bulk, and it should be doing as much as it can be doing, it'll be doing. So it's kind of no more or no less. So that's a constraint that you've got to live with, that this thing has got a limited amount of movement in the truss rod. Regardless of boosting it a little bit, it just hasn't got any more bend it can do by the looks of it. But it's worth a try. So I'm going to give it some fairly hefty cranking, and then we'll see. It's one of the things that I would highly recommend you establish with a seller, whether or not, it's not really doing much, whether or not the truss rod adjusts, because if it doesn't, you're stuck with whatever curvature you're able to pull, and that's your lot. There's no adjustment. Now in this case it's probably just enough to make it play, but we've checked it out, and quite frankly it's not much. Okay, so let's continue with the fun stuff. And so that's the first thing to say, is it's probably still, because I played it and I know that it does play, it's probably still worth cleaning up and putting a new nut on. And that is, if nothing else, because you're making it more saleable. If you're going to move it on, if it's not going to be a keeper, then at least cleaning it up as best it can be will make it a bit more saleable and certainly more attractive. Now there's a limit to what we can do. There are some basic things, but I'm not going to be spending weeks deep steam cleaning this, because it isn't going to be an awful lot more than it is. Okay, so I've got a extremely rusty bridge, which I'm hoping I can just swap out with a similar thing, but it depends, and this isn't very encouraging, it depends on the spacing, and I'm getting a feeling that this spacing is not going to play ball with me. Now it's fraction off. Well, we could overcome that by drilling that out slightly if we had to, but maybe we've got some other spares that will drop in. So again, this is starting out with an odd spacing, because that's definitely non-standard. Like, you didn't have enough trouble as it was. This one I've wax potted to shut up the rattling noise, but you never know, it might fit. All fractionally the wrong size, or those posts are slightly the wrong size. A fair bit of wax here and there, but it's not a big deal. Let's just go on there first of all and clean that hole out. Okay, so there's a goer, there's a taker. It's better than a rusty one. It's got wax in it, but that will stop the thing rattling. So let's get rid of these contenders and we'll work with this one. Okay, we're going to get rid of these strings right away because they're completely filthy, and actually somebody's put new strings on, they're not that bad, but we'll ditch them because they're not so cool. I shouldn't have done that just yet, what an idiot. I should have waited because I need to get the nut slot right, but hey, I've got spares. So next bit of this game is we're going to knock off the nut. Oh, well, just as well. Horrible plastic thing that we're going to have to now kind of chisel out the glued on remains. And that is actually pretty stuck. So this gets a little bit more difficult. To sort of snap it off if we can. Possibly, or maybe not. So it's not going to play ball, so we're going to need to remove the remaining plastic, and I'm going to use a nice fine file for that purpose. We'll have to clean this back because it's possibly not exactly flat. I'm going to sneeze. That's thanks to the build-up of glue residue and stuff. This surface isn't the most critical. A nut will sit on glue on top of a very slightly uneven surface, but the bit that you really need to be sure of is the angle where it joins the end of the fingerboard, and having stuff sticking out like this glue doesn't help, so we have to get rid of that first, in whatever way we feasibly can. And it's very thin, so actually getting it off is trickier than you think. And then what we really just want to make sure that this joint, or this corner, is cleanly cut and there's no bits sticking up that will get in the way, like those. So just cutting down into the corner. So over here we've got a new nut, and straight away that sits fairly neatly into the slot. Sometimes if you're really stuck, you can get a piece of sandpaper, wrap it round a straight edge, which is probably not what I want to do that way. I mean, you can wrap it around a straight edge like this, and you can use that to just smooth out the surface if you're concerned about any bits sticking up, but be careful not to cut down the end of the fingerboard. Okay, so this will sit pretty nicely, and it's reasonably fitting. We'll probably Dremel off a little bit on the edges here, or maybe we can't file it, we'll Dremel it. We'd probably be better to go flush to this side and leave a bit of overhang here, because we want, if anything, we want a fraction more playing room on the treble side. On the floor with that. Okay, so since we're going with this, we're going to glue that on in a second. First of all, we'll get a cloth and do our best to just make sure the fingerboard is cleaned up. This looks like the fingerboard's in reasonably clean condition, as in somebody's probably rubbed it down not too long ago. yeah, there's not a lot of visible gunk coming off. And then since then they've probably left it and it's covered in household dirt. But actually as a fingerboard it's actually not too offensive. It's nice and dark, it has that proper aged look about it. So again, for an inexpensive setup, this is getting a fairly quick going over. And so with a load of this naphtha, we're going to go around the whole of the guitar at this point and get rid of as much of the visible grime as possible. We probably will go in the back door just to add some contact cleaner to the pots, see if we can improve the crackling situation. No reason why we shouldn't be able to. This is road worn, so there isn't any chance of making this thing look pristine, so it really is just about getting it as clean as it can be given the finish. Now at this end here, again, we've got a ton of grime, but we've also got sort of holes caused by, or splitting as well, caused by badly fitted tuner screws, which is a shame, but it's quite common that you don't drill a big enough pilot hole and then the screws actually punch, or cause the wood to split. This is a fairly dull headstock anyway. We'll go around the edge here. Get the edge clean as much as possible. Again, there's a limit to what you can do with this because it is road worn and grimy. And I suppose the key thing here is the money and time goes into putting a new nut on, getting the nut slots right, and fitting new strings so that you give it as good a chance of playing and staying in tune as possible. So that's my primary target with this. The grime on these tuners won't clean up. It's sort of lifelong. So it's still very authentic. I suppose while it's upside down, let's take a look into the cavities. Have a quick look at the cavities and get them sprayed up. The thing that will probably take most time in this will be getting the nut done to the right height, because blimey, somebody's used very long screws. Yeah, that will be the precision part in a way. Inside the house I've got another one of Beech's guitars, which is a Yamaha, Japanese made Yamaha SE700 from similar, a bit later than this, mid-80s, and it is a different category of guitar. It's a Matsumoto made guitar from that factory, a high quality factory, the right era. So when you look in here, this is the standard for these guitars, and it's pretty grim. So you're not going to get that much in the way of quality. I'm just looking to see whether these are clearly replacement pickups. They're 2 cable pickups, so I don't know if there will be that. But they are, I'm pretty certain they're not the originals. Could be wrong though. problem with these spray things, you can't actually get them where you want them. With pots like this, the biggest problem, the reason why they developed those crackles, and that really didn't need to be in there, did it? Is because the, oh yikes, the contacts get filthy. Right, see, this is what you get, and as soon as you start, everything gets worse as you go along. Yeah, the contacts get filthy, so more than anything they need to be used and used and used. And even if you spray contact cleaner on it, it won't make it go away instantly. But it rusted. But it will help if you then follow it up by rotating the pots a lot at speed. These are pretty filthy and grimy, but they will still work. So we're going to do the same for all of them, because we probably ought to. Again, this is really only, only in the realms of cleaning and daily maintenance, as if it was your car and you were going on a journey. You want to make sure that those knobs work. Now, in handling them, it's often a risk that when you handle them to tighten them up like this, that you can break a connection. So you have to be pretty careful to check afterwards. Then you also have difficulty. Thanks. You have a difficulty because the pot wants to turn, and if you've got some device to hold the pot and prevent it from turning, that really helps. I think that does just about. And then this one's pretty much turned around already, so it can be quite difficult to tighten them up without getting a complete spiking. So a horrible set of components in there, I'm afraid, but we'll put these back in and we'll do it at some pace because it will take too long otherwise. Some people say, well, how could you continue and put that back and not replace those parts? Well, it's doable, but you're going to talk about 20 quid in components by the time you've upgraded it, rewire, take all the wires out, reroute everything. So it becomes a couple of hours or an hour and a half of soldering and wire cutting and stuff. So we're not on that budget, you see. We're not on that budget. You can see this is all very grimy. But that's what it is. It is what it is. Okay, we'll put these back on. Try and get the zeros or somewhere roughly where we want them. Feels better, it's not moving like it was before. Again, it'll happen over time, you'll get it to move, but periodically you want to check and tighten them up. It just gives a much better playing experience. And like I said, once you've put the contact cleaner on, you then want to be doing a fair bit of this for a little while, and anything that's clogging up the two contacts inside those pots will kind of clean off, especially with the softening of the contact cleaner. So that's probably, I should be fairly confident that's improved that considerably. Okay, so the next bit is going to be an interesting part. This is the bit of how do we get the nut right for this. Now, I probably could do with a set of tins or something that I can use, sacrificial. Top load Telecaster. These might not be 10s, but since we don't have much control in the relief, it's not that important. So let's just have a quick look. Can we get where we want to go? You know what, we can't top loading telly. Why not? Sure, that's because it's got locking tuners. Then jumped the gun there, didn't I? Thank you. And I get a set out of this. Let's have a look. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that I should go off camera for, because I'm farting about looking for a set of spare wires or strings that if I actually can't find them, these should go in the bin, because there's no point having these kicking about distracting me. What a mess. Bird's nest of stuff, really. Come on. This just doesn't want to play. So you get to a point where you just think, sod it, I'll just open a new set of strings. I mean, we could end up using the final ones, but I like to have them new if possible. It feels better. Okay, let's drag this one out through this bird's nest. Right, are we getting anywhere near full length? Probably. Right, let's just do it. So this doesn't make sense to try and polish this up, because everything else is completely filthy. We'll seat it on there. We'll put the replacement bridge on, which hasn't got to do anything other than sit there and possibly allow me to alter the intonation. That's all I need it to do. So we're going to try and straighten out these bits of wire and get some of these strings out of this mix to use. And for starters, I'm going to, it really is a hopeless process. I'm going to start off by trying to load up the E, and we don't reach the damn thing. That's because it's not the right set of strings. Okay, I'm just wasting my time here. I can go in the spare bin, no, the recycling bin. Let's find some, can we find some spares? Spares, where do you live? They're around somewhere. Where have I put spares? I had them here somewhere. What was done with the spare strings? Sorry guys, waste of time this. Spare strings, gone. I had a box of spare strings and I used them recently. And now they have gone away. Not in there, not in there. Off camera. Right, I found some, well these are 11s, so they're not ideal, but they'll do, because I'll never use them in anger. So I'm going to use them just for the purposes of getting this nut right. And actually you might find the guitar will need to have something like 11s on it to even play by the time we get done. Now I can't, because the nut is not yet fixed, I'm going to start by anchoring the G string, sorry, the D and the G first. That will be the plan, so that I can hold the nut down without it firing off sideways. And the purpose of this is I just want to see where the strings fall, and then we can work out how much we need to remove from the thing. I'm going back to front. It's not a wraparound bridge. Tell I'm 100% on the ball tonight. Okay. And the G, please. Thank you. 2 consonants, Carol. Okay. Now these are budget strings, not the kind I normally use, but they are Simon's Sacrificial Specials, so I'm grateful for them nonetheless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get them on here, if I can even see the damn hole. Put that back on please, thank you very much. And drop the nut, right. Let's put this on first. Right, here is the nut, ladies and gentlemen. And it's going to try and pull a bit that way because it just is. And we're going to go up to this side with this one. So, fiddly, annoying, frustrating stuff for a minute. Okay, and then we'll have this one under load in a minute. Thank you. Okay, so these are our middle two strings. I'll put them under slightly even pressure, and then we'll do the other ones. And with this I'm going to then just work out the amount that we have to shave off this nut to make it appropriate for this. Now, what's interesting about this is quite a way off the mark, but it isn't the same on this bridge, is it? Blimey, that's way off. So this neck is not aligned very well, first of all. We may have to look at the original bridge if the spacing is different, but it shouldn't be because it's fitted on the exact same thing, exact same post. Okay, so that is about 2 millimeters too wide. Okay, so let's have a look back here. Where's the rusty original piece of thing gone? Are you for real? What have I just done with it? Oh, I didn't put it in there, did I? Oh, here it is. Thank you. Let's just check the spacing on here. Yeah, they are different. Okay, that's not a workable option then. Okay, so look, we're going backwards in time because we're discovering that certain things just aren't possible. Now, what might well be possible at a certain level of fafferation is to replace these rusty things, and I'm sort of loath to do it because it's a ball breaking pain, but let's see. Oh, this is mucky. Somebody sprayed this in all manner of juice to keep it, I think, to keep it lubricated, but let's see if this will work first of all. So first of all, can we make a straight replacement with the clip? Is it anywhere near the same width, length, etc.? Will it do the same job? No, too small. So we have to use the original clip. Next question. Can we change out these, or are they rusted in place? I've got some bad news for you, ladies and gentlemen. So these are the details that you won't know until you get here and try. Appears to be movement. Okay, some of them are falling out, that's nice. So what have we got? We got the A and we've got the G. Let's put that over there. We've got the A and the G. Let's see if we can get the E to behave. Some movement. Okay, E, G, okay. Right, so we're kind of constrained to using this frame, but we could possibly get away with renewing the saddles. Can we? Does it? Does that fit in there? No, I'm just at this point I'm a bit gummed up with wax, but that's not a problem. So you can see how every stage of the plan gets ditched when we discover things aren't as we assumed. Okay, let's have a feel of this. Does this turn? Yeah, it turns. Okay, there's loads of wax kicking around, but will it pull it to the front? Yeah, just about. Okay. Now, what do I know about intonation? I know that intonation tends to want to go the opposite way to where we're going to try and make it go. So I'm going to take these. I probably picked the wrong ones to do it with because these are all waxed. But hey, we'll turn them around to begin with. And we'll stick them back in here. Like I say, all I'm doing this for is to clean up, if possible, the individual saddles so we've got a cleaner set to work with. And as you know, they're all waxed from a previous job. I'm just looking at the okay, we've got a reverse situation going on here, so these are opposite. Okay, so this is actually the low E one if we're coming from that direction and we want to actually reverse it. Yikes. Okey-dokey. Low E, correct. Reverse. What you find is that it's usually more intonation room you need rather than less. So you want the flat face of the saddle to be pointing towards the back end of the guitar, and you want it to be able to get as close in the long run as it can possibly get to the back of the guitar. Now you can always pull it shorter again, but it's usually normally it needs to go further this way. That's where you usually run out. It's not quite so common that the bridge is placed in the wrong position the other way. So these are all currently going to be in the right direction for what we want, except that one needs pushing so I can do the screw. Okay, little bits of mud, wax coming out, but that's fine. Getting anything to do what you want it to do is a pain, especially when you've got fiddly little bits like this that want to go and fall all over the place. Come on. Thank you. Stay in. Okay, now this is the wrong way around, these three, so I think we'll also probably want to spin these around. So we'll do the same, boring, clean out the slots, turn them, pull them out. Let's try and do that while they're held in there. It wouldn't be quite so fiddly had I not already potted these for another situation. But that's cool. So we're going to end up with all of our saddle flat faces facing backwards. That's the plan. And each one has a slightly different notch shape, which I think on this one could well have been back to front actually, because somebody's turned it round at some point. But that's okay because we're now readjusting that. So you can see even this fiddly little thing takes a fair bit of time to get done. And there's no easy way around. And it just now that does want to fit in there. Let's pull the other one out as well. Let's come out. Let's drop right out. Try and get it back in. Fat fingers don't want to behave. That one goes back in, but kind of just about goes in. That one falls right out. This one doesn't appear to want to fit at all. Alright, now it's in. So we're not even at the finish point yet. want you to see in real time the suffering, the horror. So, you know, from a commercial customer point of view, and I don't mean Beach because he's been a very good customer in a very short period of time, so I don't mind, you know, it's taking longer. But from a commercial sort of day-to-day point of view, things like this just take a whole wodge of time, and you know, there aren't a lot of ways of speeding it up. So things that people probably won't even notice, that this has changed from a kind of mouldy, rotten set of saddles to a fresher looking set of saddles. It's going to take half an hour of time, and the truth is it's paid time, you know, and if you've felt bad about it, well, okay, sure, you could do this yourself, but if you ran plumbing business and somebody wanted you to dedicate another half an hour of your time to what their job they asked you to do, you would feel bad if you ended up doing it for free all the time. Okay, so here are the start points. Now I'm just going to pull all these back into position, and I'm going to guess the saddle positions. I'm going to go right to its stops on the front. Oh God, without the clip in, this is now going to struggle. Right, back a bit, back a bit, back a bit, forward a bit. Now it may be that we end up having to put another 3 back the other way, but my experience is that it usually ends up more like this than the other way around. Right, back with the original bridge. Oh, forgot the clip, the annoying clip, which hopefully is going to hold these on, but it's a bit messy and rusty and filthy, and very difficult to manipulate, as anyone who's tried to put one of these back in place in the past will no doubt have found out. Beyond a certain point, it doesn't want to behave. Okay, right, new saddles, slightly different spacing. So, with a bit of luck, this low E in a minute. See, this is an absolute pain too, because I haven't glued it down because we have work to do, so I can't afford to glue it down yet. But it doesn't want to stay in the right place, as you can see. You can go out of the way because they're not going to be used. Bring this over here. Let's cut these excess bits off because they ain't no good to nobody. So you can see it's a, oh God, these tuners are screwed as well. It may just be tightening that they need, but I've got a feeling they aren't doing up at all. I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that I am. Holy cow! So there's no bite on that at all. So you know, this is just problem after problem. The only way to get around that now is to replace these tuners with a new set. So you know. I mean that is, oh my God, that is an absolute royal pain, and that's broken the string. Brilliant. Oh. So you can see this is now starting to become a lousy pain. Some people will say, is there a point at which you just go down tools, this is not worth it? Yes and no. See, look at that, that's funny. What has happened here? Because that is off the mark, and that is the same basic saddle as that. There can't be any further positioning. It's pointing the wrong way for a start, but that aside, that's really weird. So maybe, I don't know if the neck has moved a bit since we've taken the loading off. But put it round this way. If these actually line up a different way, then that would be quite some surprise. Because it shouldn't have adjusted. Okay, that's not brilliant. We might have to try and adjust the neck separately. Okay, the neck's obviously pulling off to one side there. Right, so it's starting to get mucky, even though I haven't really done anything. It's just all the grime on this original bridge. Okay. So that's a problem with the low E tuner. Not really, possibly not replaceable. It may well be because the tuner body isn't deep enough to fit through this fat headstock, and I suspect it's failing. The ferrule is failing to bite on the other side, and the only way of actually getting around that is to thin down the headstock, which is not feasible, not without refinishing it and going the whole hog on it. So what somebody's done is they've applied a set of tuners to it that haven't got long enough tuner posts, and they've kind of forced it to work, and that's your lot, basically. Oh well. It's not an ideal situation, so let's see what else we can find that's wrong, he said, optimistically. So I'm just getting rid of these excess bits, not really because I want to live with these strings in the end, but I just want to clear up so I don't get spiked, because getting a string through the end of your finger at this stage it'll just be adding insult to injury. Okay, so I mean, so I'm looking at the fact that the neck is slightly misaligned, and we might want to slack off the neck at this point. But let's take things one at a time. Let's get the nut done, and then we'll take care of the issue of alignment. However, we might find that if we take the neck off or loosen it to realign it, we might find ourselves uncovering some other horrors. Okay, so we are well misaligned as far as the bridge position is concerned. It can't go anywhere, so it has to be the neck realignment. Okay, so just taking a quick look at the nut, and I'm just going to tap it in at the bottom for a minute so it's standing upright. So we get a kind of clear idea of the heights of things. So we are a fair few, that's pinging away on the nut, I won't worry about that for now. So if we look at the spacing, get a gauge, we can see what the difference is. Now we know that we want a 0.3 millimeters over the first fret. So let's see what we've got. Way too much, right? That's okay, we'll just take it down from underneath. So let's add up these things. We've got 70, 95, 115, 115, too high, 115, 130, 1 millimeter 30. Okay, 1mm 30, 1mm 40. What's this one? 50. Okay, let's go back to the 50. Is that 50? I can't read. Okay, let's go 50, 30 and 40. That is 120. 120. 120, right, let's add some more. 145. A bit more. 145, 160. Just over 160. And down here. Okay, so the treble end is up higher. So treble end, we've got 160, let's call it 165. And at the base end, let's find out what we've got. Let's go, this 0.05 one is fiddly. Okay, let's go 70, 95, 110. 110. Hard to tell. No. Let's go 70, 85, 0.85. 0.85, that's okay. Let's go 0.95. So 70, 85, 95. 0.95. Okay, put 85. Call it 85 to 90. So 0.9 at the most. Okay, so here we want 0.3, so we're going to go, and here we want 0.3, so here we're going to go minus 1.35 max, and here we're going to go minus 0.6. That's the distance we've got to get removed. So, for the fun of it, take these off. Now ideally, we don't want to get as close as we can without cutting down into the nut. You probably have to do that for the fine tuning, but it's kind of good to be able to do it without, you know, if we can get away without cutting into the nut slots, then we leave the sort of factory made slots, and we might just need to widen them, and that's about it. So on the base side, we have to take a reference measure to begin with in mils, and we go, reference measure is 7.52. So 7.52, and on the treble side the reference measure is miles high, 8.28. 8.28. So we're going from 7.52 down to minus 6, so minus 5 would be 0.2, 92, 6.92, add 0.6 is 752, so we're going for 692 on the base side, and we want to take off 135, which is 728, take off 28, 7, minus another 7, 693. So add 1.5 is 793, 798, 828. Okay, so that's our target for each of these. So we know that we've got twice as much on the base side to remove. So we could, if we want to, start with a small mark. If I find enough pen, we could make a mark, and we go to the treble side, which is the biggest one, and we could go to a minus 1.35 we've got to take off. Okay, so 1.35 on the caliper. And this is really only as a guide. So we draw a mark on there, just to kind of give us an idea of the slope we're aiming for. And then 0.5 millimeter, 0.6, is the drop down on the other side. which is going to be tiny by comparison. I can barely even see it. And then we can draw a line between them to give us an idea of the slope. This is quite difficult now because this is trying to tip over, so you might just have to hold it in place long enough to draw a line. Okay, so the challenge here is going to be cutting the slope in this and keeping the bottom of the nut slot flat 90 degrees at the same time. So we're going to have to be watching in 3 dimensions really. So I'm just colouring in this slope to get it close to what we're aiming for. Tidy up a few bits and pieces. Now this is, I probably should have taken time before this to get a new piece of sandpaper up here because it'd make the job a lot easier, but I didn't, so let's go with what we've got. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by cutting down on this treble end. That means I'm going to press down more on the treble end and see if I can start removing material, and you get an idea of how it's working. Now we'll sort of keep going, and then we'll try and even out when we get both sides roughly the same. And when we do get both sides roughly the same, we're then going to want to just do the whole thing evenly. Now if you do this and it kind of overcuts, then the challenge is you end up having to shim. So it's quite a difficult task. And to be honest, cutting the nut down from above is a much more dependable way of getting to the mark that you want. But it does leave you with deep slots that you have to tidy up. Anyway, so this is all looking fairly good. And again, hoping that we're keeping as close to a 90 degree on the bottom as possible. So more had to come off the treble side, which it has. And now I sort of lighten the pressure really, because all I really want to do is get this as tidy and smooth across the bottom as possible, providing I don't really cross over that line. Now if I go with this as it is now and it isn't quite right, then I may find myself having to do a tiny bit more downward cutting with the files, and that isn't a bad thing, because when I use the combination of the files and the Japanese, no, what's it called, you know, the jeweler file, the jeweler file and the thingamajig file, the expensive nut files, combination of those two gets the job done pretty well. But we are going to a very precise level here, so I'd rather work downwards a little bit than be caught too low. And I think that's just about the right place to stop. In fact, this slot here isn't good, and this one's higher than the others, it appears. But I think we are very close to the mark actually. Could almost play that as is. And let's give it an under pressure test up to normal pitch. That's quite close to where we want to be. Well, not now. I don't know what that was. That isn't at all bad. I might consider that we don't do any cutting on there. The high E is a tiny fraction high, but you know, oh, it's not high, it's a tiny fraction higher than I want, but I actually prefer the fact that this is nearly spot on than going. I might need to widen the slots, that's all I might need to do. So hey, we'll tweak it, So, having decided that I'm comfortable with how that works, it's time to glue this on. The monster escapeth. Honestly, I don't know this super glue stuff, it's uncontrollable. You need like a lion tamer to do anything with it. Whatever you do, it gets out of the container and goes on a run on its own. It is bloody uncontrollable. Right, so I'm going to put this on here and I'm going to go flush with the treble side, which is there. Flush with the treble. And to get it stay on, I'm going to hook up these strings. Right, that feels good. Overhang here, which is great, we'll take care of that. We'll just use these strings now to weight it down for a minute, and then we'll use them to just tweak and open up the slots if they need it. This guitar might actually benefit from just being left as a set of 11s on here actually. Is that straight? Yeah, that's sitting good. Looking at relief on here, it's practically flat, so nothing. We got a guitar with a dead truss rod, unfortunately. However, I think if we can get this neck slightly realigned, I think it'll play okay. But you know, we're still on the low cost setup, getting the nut right so it feels good down here. So we'll do a little bit of work with these files, and I'll use the gauge at this end as well. So let's go for 0.4 because we don't have any relief. We can't go too low. So I'll start from the center outwards, and we'll get these in the right order. Okay, so 40 or 40, and now what I'm going to do is, because these are dodgy, I'm going to open these up with the V file and use that as the primary carving device. Right, that's practically on the mark, that is. Okay, next one. Actually, I think what that one was it was sitting on top of the hole, so I don't think we got a good indicator there. Similar with that one, and it dropped into the hole as soon as I cut it down. Close. then if we want to do a fine tuning, we use this one. Okay, and then this one, which is higher. That's not there, it's there. Right. Oh, catches my finger. Oh, just stabbed myself. Very small amounts of adjustment here, indeed. And then do it on the 12, even though it's an 11 gauge. 12 is probably almost too tight to do this, but I'll do it with it anyway. Just about. Then we go off the end of these. 32. That's on the mark. It's a bit lower than what we'd want, but we'll leave it there because it's playable. And that's just under as well. And we'll go there. I think all of those are pretty good on the mark. Now, next thing will be alignment. Well, constrained by the curvature of the neck for one thing. The action is a little bit almost too low, so we'll try and hoik this out if it didn't have a useless slot in it. Yeah, we want about 1.5 on the end here. It's just about on the mark there, and we want 1.2-ish on the end there, but it's unfortunately a little bit higher than that. I don't think we can go any lower. We can try. Let's do it and see what happens. Okay, well, these weren't intended to be the last strings anyway, but that's bloody annoying. When that snapped off. Cheap strings, who knows? I think the worry will be, well, that went somewhere. The worry would be that there isn't enough pull in lower gauge strings to take care of this. So I've got a spare 11 here, which is kind of lucky, isn't it? play with this for a bit without any other strings breaking. Yeah, I mean, the only relief at all, or the best we're going to get, is with I mean, we'll try and slack the rod off. I was trying to get some relief out of it, but sorry, some back bow out of it, but it wouldn't do anything. So we'll slack it off and see if we get a little bit of relief. But I don't think it's working either way, so I don't think it's really going to help much. But we never know. I think I might have been imagining the back bow when I tightened it up in the first place, so I was sort of hopeful. So let's give it a go and see if we can get a little bit more relief. So we'll go backwards and slack it off some and see if it makes any difference at all. Maybe not. Yeah, we got a little bit out of it, that's not bad. Let's see. It's got a nice acoustic tone. Too short. So it looks like we will need to go backwards. Just checking, was anything still pinging? Right, so before we do the intonation, or attempt the intonation, what I'm going to do with this is I think I'm going to try and realign the neck first, and then once I've done that, play it for a bit, and then we'll come back and see if we can improve it any more. So for this to move, we need the neck to go in that direction, downwards. This is always the wrong blasted direction for doing this. And it's always difficult to do. I mean, we could depressurise it a bit, but then you never quite know what you're dealing with because you're not at tension. So we have to push away a little bit. Let's try it. Get a decent torque on here. What time is it? 7:30. So, how much give have we got in this direction? I bet there's not much. Let's try and lock it with that for a minute. Oh, we have got a bit of give actually, that's not too bad. Halfway and halfway, let's get that done up. So the way I've done that is tightened it up with one, and then on one used the visual to line it up the way I want it, and then now nail it down with the second one and the third and the fourth. And I'm doing them as diagonals to each other. Double check and tighten it up a bit. Okay, still a little bit on the, we want a bit more on the treble side. So two bolts in now, just finishing the alignment. So it's kind of 1, then 2, then 3 and 4, and that should, the 3 and 4 should hold it in place, and then you can come back and look. I think that's pretty good. So with a bolt-on neck you do have a surprising amount of room to adjust. It can look terrible to begin with, and then you can go back and actually get it pretty well tightened up and pretty well aligned actually. Okay, so that should be pretty much where we want it. Now let's go back into tune. Stretch. So with the amount of relief that I was able to get by slacking the truss rod right off again, I think we might be alright with 10s. So both the A and the G, sorry, the A and the D have got a slight ping going on there. So I just want to widen those if I can a little bit, so they're not going to grab and ping. Twos. Okay. Those 11s, we need a bit more. Where's it gone? A bit more counter relief. Oh, a bit less relief, we should say. So I'm just going to go back a little bit to near where we were. It's actually bloody impossible to get the hex key in there and move it around. Right, so I think we're as good in terms of positioning and stuff as we can get. We're a little bit higher than I want to be, so I'm just going to go down a little bit there, take it on here, a bit higher. We're at the limit of adjustment on the bridge now, so that's your lot. Just about where I'd want it. A fraction higher, but so let us check now the intonation, see what we can do with that. You can see that it's not been a quick business, and it doesn't look very much different from before, because it simply won't. We'll check the tightness of that jack socket as well, by the way. So I'll just put that under there to keep allow me to keep it stood up but keep the jack from pushing against the bench. Okay, so first indication is that's too short, so we're going to need to push this back somewhat. So counterclockwise, push it back, and I'm going to follow back with the others. Sit down, test the other ones. The thing to watch out for on the intonation of this one is that the bridge is already tilted or slanted, so it doesn't need quite as much stagger in the pattern as you'd imagine. Showing up too short still. So counterclockwise, push it back. Now I've pushed that a fair bit back, so I'm going to push the other ones back with it, and so on and so forth. There is a relationship between them all that has to be followed, but the severity of the step back relates in also to the natural step back on the bridge in relation to the body. So on a guitar with the bridge is straight in relation to the body, you get a steeper break between the different positions, different saddles. Okay, happy with that. So that's the payoff of putting the different saddles on, as we get that intonation right, which is good. Okay, so I don't know how long we've been going. So there you go, 1 hour to get this far, and a new nut. 1 hour, a new nut, and a set of strings. Actually, it's going to be 2 sets of strings by the time we're done. But so just to give you an idea of the time involved, and you know, those are strong, those are solid. The jack socket is tight, which is good. Actually, might have a tiny bit of movement in that. I'm going to get caught out with this like I did the other day. It went horribly wrong. And I'm having to take it apart to get the damn tool out. But hey, so you go in here with this fabulous Stumac tool, you turn it counterclockwise, and then you get your turning device in here, and you turn this clockwise. No, yes, to do it up, idiot. It's not a very easy thing to grip hold of, no matter what you use. I think it seems quite good enough. The thinner pliers don't give you much grip. They come pinging off at the wrong moment. That's a bit better. Then you turn this forward to release it. Thank you for behaving. Okay, so we've got the position right. We've got some fairly heavy strings on here just to try it out. We've got the intonation right, and we've got nice low first fret action. Sounds and feels pretty good. We're missing a black tip on there, which we might well have knocking about somewhere. Again, a new switch would cost £3 to £5, something like that. Come on, where's the bits? Selector tips, for goodness sakes. These are, for all I know, these could all be, mostly be for strats, but we could get lucky. Oh yes. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman. There we are. Look at that. So new bridge saddles, new tip, new nut, some cleaned up pots, re-tightened up. I didn't oil the fingerboard because you can see it's oiled enough. It's got natural dark hue to it. Now the only question I've got now is will these notes bend? That's your basic constraint. Unless you can level the frets and spend the money on leveling the frets, this thing isn't going to bend. The notes aren't going to bend at this action. And to be honest, the height you're going to have to get to of the action to make those bend is a bit prohibitive, really. You don't want to go there. So, but it's the basic constraint of the guitar. If you don't have the frets leveled, you can't get to a lower playing action, and there's no real way around it. It's the height we'd have to have this at to get that bend out. We could try it just to make the point. So we go up a fair bit. It's going to go up in pitch, obviously. So let's say we go up to a horrible height. We go up to, yikes, 2.5 mils. Okay, 2.5 mils works. You can come down to 2. Okay, about on 2. Can't believe I'm bending 11s. 2 starts to choke out on this fret here. 2 mils. And that's a bit of a horribly high action for this kind of guitar. But, you know, 2 mils, 1.5, that sounds a bit odd, really. So if we went up to about 2 mils for both of them, fraction over, tuned it up again. Oh, lost me tuning. Still needs a bit of sandpaper or something in there. basically this fret here is high in the middle, and we could do the simplest old-fashioned this way of trying to take care of it. Right, and I'm going to show you it now. Okay, it's this one just before the body join. Okay, this one here, right? Let's try an old trick. Okay, since we're not going to spend any more money on this guitar to fret level it, let's find an old trick. Watch this. I can't guarantee anything. Find a 12-inch radius block. Make sure it's supported. Yeah, sure is. Let's get a bit of a hammer. Get it in the right one. How about that? That worked? Who knows? Shall we see? If it does work, obviously the main skill in that would be identifying the one that's causing the problem. That's the main thing you need to know. And then of course the other bit is how hard to hit it, which I have no idea that much. But you know, you can't go wrong. Sandpaper required. Tried, hasn't fixed it. You can get a tone out of it at 2 mils. So yeah, that's about as good as it's going to get without fret leveling and spending another hour on it. Okay, so not bad, not bad. Better than nothing. It's cleaner, playing we've got appropriate amount of relief on the neck for now. We can leave it like this. I think I'll come back tomorrow and worry about the truss rod cover, because I think I'll take it in and dry it out now. So there we have it. Hondo 2. Definitely really not one to spend a lot of money on. Some people have in the past, and I've done long videos of fully refurbishing one of these. And if it was your first guitar and you got it down from the attic and you just want to make it live again, fine. You know, I get that it's worth putting sometimes you know, an untold amount of money into it because it's your first guitar and it has a huge sentimental value. But as a made in Japan, oh, is it an investment? No, it's a plywood made in Japan guitar. This one luckily comes with better pickups than the originals ever had in them, so that's a good start. But it's a made in Japan from the period when the Japanese guitars were pretty lousy actually, and don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Yeah, they weren't good. This is kind of on a par with the Columbuses, your Ks, your Avons, Satellites. A little bit better maybe than Satellite, but not really in the basic. You can see basic construction is ropey, but you know, it's got punk mojo. And this is 50 quid spent on it to try and improve it, and you know, it'll have made quite a difference to how it plays. So take it in, have a bit of fun cranking it up, and see you again. Hey, good morning, day, no, afternoon. Just coming back to this little here wonderful, what do you call it? Hondo 2. Took it in last night, had a play, and it's quite good fun. It is constrained by the fret problems that we're not going to do anything about. It also feels pretty good with the 11 strings, but these were sacrificial strings, so with that in mind I will ditch them, but I'm going to keep these for possible sacrificial setups on anything else. Anyway, what I'm also going to do at this stage, if I can get the right Dremel working, the other one's in the house at the moment, but I'm just going to shave back the end of this nut because it just sticks out a little bit. It's the right fit for everything in terms of spacing and everything, but it's just a little bit hanging out from where I want it to be. So we'll get that taken care of and restring with 10s, and then this guitar will be ready to go. Now the rush of Japanese and Korean oldies continues apace, and a couple more. I picked up 3 today that were a local deal from a seller. One of them is an Aria Pro 2 Wizard, Warrior Wizard, can't remember, something like that. And the other one is, another one is a Vesta Telecaster style, and another one is a Japanese Martin copy, very old acoustic, which is a bit tireder than I had expected. So it's at that stage of life where it's starting to buckle, the neck is starting to bend into the body, and the action, well, it kind of dips at the join a little bit, and the action's starting to go up because it's bellying. So it didn't cost an awful lot, but it's got a nice tone. It probably plays rhythm guitar very nicely, but it's not one you would try and play higher up the fretboard on. Anyway, but the 2 electrics are nicely road worn in there and aged. Now I'm just going to try and untangle this plug. I can get it out. That's what the trouble is when you've got lots of things plugged in for lots of things. Right, let's take the heat, blow dryer, air blower gun out. Let's put that wire out of the way. I really should readjust all of this. And then we've got a sanding barrel drum thing. And here, thankfully, on the magnetic thing, we've got the tightener upper adjuster. Okay, so to get rid of this excess bone, I'm going to put, I'll do it with masking tape. I'm going to put some masking tape here just as an overrun protector, just in case. So we scuff that first, 2 or 3 sheets, layers of it, pieces, thicknesses, scissors, flatten it down. Okay, so this is just pretty much the end of this. Good fun guitar, but you know, a bit on the worn side, but should sell if Beach ever wanted to get rid of it. Okay. The delicious smell of burning bones. strangely enough, I find this is a much more accurate and safer way of doing it to protect the finish. Although it seems extreme. That is just about where it's going to stop. Okay, thank you. Hang that up. Bone, lovely. Okay. Ding. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to restring with the 10s. New 10s, you'll need to stretch them out. But I'll just check the relief once this is done, because this will be a lesser pull, obviously, than the 11s that we had on as sacrificial strings, but we'll see how it goes. Now after this, I brought another guitar out to the shed, which is another one of Beech's, and this one's a Japanese one as well, and it's an SE 700 Yamaha. Now I had the SE 350 a while back. Actually, it was my sister's guitar that she asked me to, well, she sort of donated it to Really Loves Guitars, and then once I'd set it up, she kind of fell back in love with it. And it, to be fair, it had been a childhood guitar of hers, so I couldn't not give it back to her. But she loved it, and I enjoyed it too. It was a real surprise for quite an anonymous black guitar, early 80s, mid 80s, made in Japan from the Matsumoku factory, and it just had all of the quality that people have come to expect of those guitars, and in particular it had a Japanese made, but it had a Yamaha brand tremolo system on it, which was not only did it work fantastically well, it was actually way better than many other Floyd Roses that I'd ever come across. And the reason for it is that, if I recall correctly, it had a string anchoring facility down in the bridge, which was unlike most of the Floyd Roses you get from that era, which are designed to be clamped by a block. So they're clamped by force, by screwing in a hex bolt, which pushes a clumsy, rather crude metal block into a cut string end and holds it there by force. The Yamaha had a kind of space underneath all of that where the balls of the string could fit, so you didn't have to cut them off. You could just string it from that end, and the clamping parts on top were purely just to keep the string tidy, and it wasn't the bit that took all the force. Now, as a result of that, even if you over tighten them and you ended up stripping the hex attachments, or the hex holes at the top, which is quite often what happens when you're using those little tiny adjusters to really push down hard on a string to physically hold it in place. The harder you have to press these things to hold the string, the more likely it is you're eventually going to strip out those hex fittings, which is in fact what had happened on that old guitar. But because they weren't instrumental in holding the string, so they weren't particularly load bearing, then it didn't really matter that you couldn't tighten them up very much. They only had to be tight enough not to fall out. So that was a real smart modification in my book. And apart from that, the tremolo was flawless. I mean, you could absolutely dive bomb it and knock the hell out of it, and it wouldn't go out of tune. So, a very good piece of kit. Now, the SE 700 that's in here, hanging up at the moment, has a different tremolo again, but I'm kind of interested to see if it borrows the smart design from its younger brother, the SE 350. This one's a HSS. The 350 was an HSH, I think, originally. I found another one later. It was so good I bought another one. In fact, it was for a friend of my sister's who then fell in love with her guitar and wanted one for her kid. So I bought another one and set that up, and that was in a sort of bright red, and it was, rather than an HSH, it was an HH one, or the other way around. Maybe my sister was the HH one. Anyway, it was still a great guitar, and I ended up not having one, which is kind of regretted in a way. So here we have the 10s on. We have the nut cut back, and we'll just get this under tension, do some stretching, and then just check the relief. We should be good to get it back in this box ready to go, because I think the thing with Beech's guitars at the moment is I've actually got to a place this morning where one came in and I actually didn't know who it was from. Now I've since confirmed it's another one of these type of guitars, which is interesting because I'm not sure it's going to be any better or worse than this one. So my advice might be just sell it on. Yes, so yeah, and interesting these are not necessarily, for the reasons I've mentioned, not necessarily what I would recommend to the retro collector. Just that, for the simple reason that they're incredibly of a muchness. Possibly, I don't know if they were built in the same factory, but it wasn't. I'm pretty certain it wasn't your Fuji Gen or your Matsumoto, and if it was, then it was before the golden era, the golden age, where these things really started to be put together well. And so it's here that we've got the high fret, and we're just about getting a one tone bend out of it, which isn't too bad, and the height of the action is about 2 mils on both high and low E's, which is about 0.5 millimetre at least higher than I would like, or 0.5 millimetre higher than I would like on the low E, but not too bad, considering there's no fret leveling. Now I'm getting slight pinging on these strings, and I don't know for sure whether it's to do with the slots here. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't think it's the saddles down there. But just trying to get it loosened up. Tiny pinging going on there. I think I can see the pinch point down here. I don't think so anyway. Still pinching. The key thing about widening is you've just obviously got to be careful not to lower it too much while you're widening. It's quite a challenge, really. Okay, I think we're pretty much done with this baby. And what I'll do is stretch it a bit more, and then we'll hang it up ready. Or we'll put the truss rod cover back on, and we'll hang up ready to take back into the house, put straight back into its box, and consider prepping it for travel. Now this one came in a pretty tight fitting box, which is barely much bigger than the guitar case that it came in, and I'm going to stick with that since that's how it came. But what I'm going to need to do is to make very sure. I've lost my. Where's it gone? Okay, I can't find the fine pointed thing. I'll have to use one of these. Damn. Yes, I'm gonna have to make sure the guitar in its case is fully supported, so that it's safe. And the case will be protected a little bit by the cardboard, but it'll be kept safe by being padded, and certainly most importantly just padding to stop the guitar actually moving end to end in the case. That's probably the most important precaution to prevent damage. If it even can move an inch inside, then a drop from a height is likely to transfer a lot of kinetic energy through into the guitar neck. So it has to be, most importantly of all, it has to be snugly held in suspension inside the case. But you have to be obviously careful not to over pressurize it. This is refusing to do what I want. God almighty, some things will just not behave. Get in that hole, would you please? No, it doesn't want to go in. Thank you, now you will. Yeah, so we in padding the either end, we've got to try and find a way of making sure it stays put but isn't overstressed. Okay, that's good. We're done. Okay, so thank you for watching. See you with the next one.